Hi all, welcome to this. Let's talk about SBCs. Massive thanks to the EA Creator Network for this opportunity and EA themselves for this in general, so massive thanks to them. So let's delve deeply into SBCs from like League SBCs, Marquee Matchups, Player of the Month, whatever content that could drop within FIFA 22. So good smash likes, always much appreciated. Sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter, G is a legend. All links are down below for posting channel and social media links as always. Thought I'd make a more focused and like video on this. I know I spoke about this quite a bit in depth last night on stream. Some people might get initially bored, like, gee, why do you show this? I'm not really fussed. And then the thing is, they say that, and then people then like, oh gee, how can I make money from it? And this is kind of why we're discussing it. It's like SBCs, tap into trading, all that kind of good stuff, and you take it from there. So obviously with the Big 5 leagues, we'll tackle them right off the bat. Promoted teams are always the teams that everyone always talks about. Oh, you go for them. And because once you've got the ratings and got a clearer idea of what to expect, you say, right, well, it's promoted teams. How many goals are in each? Well, Brentford's like 5, Watford and Norwich have a healthy abundance. It then just becomes a case of a bronze or bronzes or silvers to finish off the team. Because we know commonly when we do our packs, people generally will get the gold players of like these teams, and because of potentially how the packs are working this year, silvers might prove to be a hot commodity, and even same for bronzes. So it is then worth keeping in mind that bronzes might be, if you've got any of these bronze players from any of the teams, whether it be a big team or a small team, they could be a valuable option to keep. Now it is worth noting as well, when you're going through the leagues, like even the smaller leagues, so for example in the Championship with Derby, because they're potentially going into administration, could their squad be affected by players going out the door? So they could be suddenly having to maybe say fire sale them or just let them all go because they suddenly can't afford to keep them. And then as a result, do they have like no squad or like a very thin squad in real life, but in FIFA terms there's like maybe very little to work with. So you've got to factor that in. Then obviously for the Championship as a whole, the relegated teams that came from the Premiership, so that's like Sheffield United for example, because they've obviously had quite a decent amount of goals last year, and now this year they've not got as many. It's almost like how they were when they got promoted previously, so it makes things a little bit more interesting to work with. And like when you then look at, for example, other teams in other leagues, so if you're looking at like Ligue 1, you might look at Troyes or Clermont Foot, these type of teams, because they have they've been promoted. You've got to then factor in how easy is it to work with them, and then because of the other bigger teams in the league like Lille, Lyon, Marseille, Lille have been hit hard. They don't have a gold goalie this FIFA. You've got to factor in how to make the SBC work, and then obviously like with Lyon and PSG and even Marseille to that extent as well, when you factor the three of them, that you say, you're right, how can I make it work? Because obviously they've got quite a heavy abundance of players that are too high rated that you're not really going to throw into a League SBC, but they may be useful for other SBCs. Could be Player of the Month, could be upgrade SBCs, could be an icon SBC, could be anything, any other content, but it's marquee League SBCs for example, they may be redundant because of their ratings, or even their positions, so it's worth factoring that in as well. And what I mean is that could be some of like your say 80 plus cards that may be, or 81 plus, that are kind of redundant. At Atalanta or Bergamo Calcio was there this year, they're going to be fun and games to work with because they've not got the biggest squad to work with, but it's a heavy high rated team, so you've got to factor that one in as well. But it's And then same with the promoted teams in Serie A. You've got I've still never nailed it, but Salernitana, Empoli, and then Venezia. And obviously Spezia, you've got to factor them as a team that could be affected hard by everything. Usually Bologna, Calgary, Genoa, Hellas Verona, Fiorentina, they usually are fairly straightforward. Sampdoria. So like Serie A is usually one of the leagues that's actually usually very straightforward, which is quite hilarious to watch. It's just a case of keeping in mind if players have been downgraded or upgraded accordingly. It's like where it's factoring in positions. That's what you're going to have. That's what it comes down to. With Sassuolo, I should say as well, Berardi and Consigli, you're never going to use them for League SBCs. So you've only got really 7 goals from a Sassuolo perspective, and then obviously like Spezia's 1 goal, so that's going to be fun and games when you eventually tackle them. But every team usually has its straightforward points and then it's the difficult points. But it is also worth factoring, because Serie A this FIFA is in Player of the Month, you then could see abundance in certain cards going up for one reason or another. So it could be Atalanta might have a spike, because we'll just say Muriel gets Player of the Month, so like a Player of the Month Muriel or a Player of the Month Goosens suddenly makes like it could be 86, 87 rate depending on how they do the boosts this year, and you're laughing. You say, so I've got that, I've got much improved card, and it's maybe not too inexpensive in SBC, but it at least stands out for usability. And obviously like Bundesliga has same problems. Obviously we see every FIFA they always the battle for the promoted teams, and then as we always have joked in the past, which team's always going to be the most expensive, like a Paderborn in previous years, and it could be the same cliche this year for Gruerfurth. Everyone's put Gruerfurth or Bochum, they could be this FIFA's super expensive team, but what generally will save these teams is actually the depth. Actually, I feel this FIFA, there's a decent amount of depth to work with. Obviously in Bochum's case they have 1 gold that helps you out, and there's a decent amount of bronzes to keep you ticking over as well. So I would say it's not a total disaster, it's how to make it all kind of work. Wolfsburg is going to be a pain in the backside this FIFA because of Weghorst, Baku, Castells, Arnold, Lacrosse. So you're kind of right away when you look at a team like Wolfsburg, for example, they're going to be equally as hard like a Bayern Munich or a Dortmund in the Bundesliga. So because of when you factor in Wolfsburg, they have 2 left backs that are pacey and will be most likely trading cards. It'll be commonly used for trading, but they're not going to be necessarily SBC cards, so you have to then think outside the box with it, and it's a case of trying to be smart with it. Obviously La Liga, when you tackle that, Elche is a fairly straightforward league to work with, team to work with. After staying up this FIFA, obviously, last season, Atletico's another team that I can see being like a 4 or 5 team option. Like the good thing with teams like Cadiz, Elche, this FIFA, even the league in general, actually, is the amount of teams that have a steadier amount of goals to work with. Like with Elche, they've got 5 like the promoted teams, especially like Espanyol, Mallorca, and Raul Vallecano, and Raul Vallecano even, they have a real abundance to work with in goals, like especially Espanyol. Like Espanyol especially have more than enough to build the team, so you're not struggling. Like for a promoted side for a change. The good thing is in Barbara, in Espanyol's case, you're not really going to rely on him for league SBCs, you'll more rely on him for other SBCs. Just due to rating. Mallorca's not got as many, but still 9 is more than enough to work with across the board. But the same kind of theme that you see with other teams. I will say that Real Sociedad, for example, even though I'll not show them all, I'm not going to show every team, they are one team that does have some difficulty because their big 7 players are all 81 plus, and you have they're more likely to be used for the, like say, La Liga Player of the Month SBCs over standard SBC, like the normal league SBCs, but you still have a decent amount of depth to work with, and it's just making it work accordingly. So if you were to factor that in, you've got about 12 to 13 goals that you could say maybe work out usable. But then for like other leagues, obviously when you tackle like the smaller leagues like Belgium, China, Eredivisie, it is worth, and it's also worth noting as well, there is an abundance of newer teams this FIFA, not just newer teams in leagues, but there's new teams in general. In some regards, I think for the first time that I've actually ever been in, say, like if you want to say a league SBC, or even as a FIFA, maybe even say a FIFA team to an extent. So like in Belgium, you've got St. Galois in Belgium, so with them it's going to be fun and games. Serang in Belgium as well. So these type of teams that you've got to factor in. A-League, even though there's no new teams, it's just a case of newer players being goals this FIFA, and it's one of those heavy silver bronze ones. Indian League is obviously new this FIFA, so you've got to factor in that. And Indian League in particular is very heavy on bronzes, so that could be a prime if they do something with the Indian League, which would not surprise me. The league does not start till November, so if you're preparing for any SBCs, Indian Super League could be one. Just buying it, get the stock in now. Scottish Premiership obviously has Rangers and Celtic with a healthy abundance of goals between them respectively, more so with Rangers, but as a league goes, you've got like a decent amount to work with that should help you get over the line for various SBCs. I would say that if other teams were to be a factor, like Hibs, Aberdeen will be interesting, and it is worth keeping Hibs and Aberdeen, and to an extent Hearts, and Ross County themselves would be a bit of a challenge because of lack of silvers, and they're heavy on the bronze. Wrexham will be interesting because they're the only team in there, and the same applies with Hungary, and also with, you could say, the UAE League, and you can also say with the Cypriot League with Apoel. With Eredivisie, Alkmaar this FIFA will be a real challenge. Usually they're straightforward, but this FIFA, with the sheer lack of players, I'm fully expecting them to be quite a challenge. But I think what they need to ensure for not only this FIFA, like throughout, is making sure even like leagues like the K-League have like a use. I've not shown it here, but like Mexican League has a very heavy abundance in goals across the league this FIFA. I think could be up there with one of its best years for golds for a while, regardless of players that have been upgraded, downgraded respectively, and even transfers that have happened within the league. So they'll prove especially useful for like the league SBCs if and when they do come, and their silver stock is more than abundant. It's obviously try to factor in the bronzes respectively, because that is kind of where the challenge usually comes with some of these teams. It's like you can get a few of the golds in, silvers are too expensive, but the bronzes are spot on. So it's like golds and bronzes and like silvers are kind of redundant. But with like Apoel, even like let's say the South African League, like obviously the leagues like the Czech League, the South African League, these are ones that you never really see anything happen with. Like South African League, we've had like Marquee Matchups I think once in like 17 or 18, maybe it was 17 and 18. And the Czech League I think it's been like once for a Marquee Matchups. Ukraine I think's been once, and it's like the only time they will get a use, like in Ukraine's case is like Shakhtar when it's been for like the Champions League. Czech League had Baluta for road to the final card a couple of years ago. It's trying to basically work out like what's there, and it's sitting down saying to yourself, well, Ferenc Kravos, you say to yourself, well, what have they got this FIFA? And you say to yourself, well, if they've got European football to contend with, which is in their case this FIFA is the Europa League, so you say, right, well, what could they get? And that's what, when you've got to factor in from a trading perspective, who would they, like, you sit down and think, who do they pick? And do they pick the most, do they pick the highest rated, which in Ferenc Kravos' case is Zuni at 75, or do they pick Nguyen because he is a pacey gold cam for a silver? It's little things like this you just sit down and think. If you pinpoint for like Marquee Matchups, for League SBCs, for whatever it may be, like there's the content within the game, if they do it right, whether it be, and even the objectives, if you sit down and think, why add the league in, even though they've maybe the teams maybe now suddenly in Europe or something else, you say to yourself, or licensing, you say to yourself, well, they've got to add the league. If they've added the league in, same with Croatian League, they've added Hajduk Splits, you think of what can they do with the cards? Like, they can't just make them redundant, like, and like with the Saudi League in particular, I've said it in stream, and I think I've covered it in Discord and that, if you've got a Paulinho, if you get Paulinho in your initial packs, keep him, don't sell him at all. He's a free agent because he left the club, so after like 4 games on his contract, so it's worth keeping hold of him. The Saudi League in general has seen a huge abundance of transfers over the summer, and it's like a quite heavy abundance of, I would say, more golds than usual as a result of it, even though there's been a few players being downgraded that were golds, and so it's worth keeping that one in mind, this FIFA especially. But I would say from your initial starter packs, keep in mind the league, the nations, because even like the basic and advanced, as much as I've shown that already on the channel, it's everything else that's in there to kind of factor in, keep you ahead, as it were, because it's not going to be straightforward, it's never going to be. And like for me, I would say it comes down to what you're trying to prepare for, because if they add players back into League SBCs, and depending how they do it, you never know that some of the teams may, like smaller teams, may prove to be gold mines to keep hold of or trade with, but some of the bigger teams within certain leagues could prove to be not as desirable. But you've got, as I say, you've got factor for Premiership playing a month, Ligue 1 playing a month, Serie A playing a month, Prem, La Liga, Ligue 1, Big Five. Sorry, honestly, my brain slipped for a sec there. I was like trying to work it all out. It's just basically the Big Five. I was overthinking it. But factor those five in because MLS isn't returned, and as much as I would like them to do, I think as much as they have like minor agreements with, I think like they've had in the past with like Mexico, Norway, Sweden, Ireland, MLS, they don't really do anything else since, which is a bit of a shame because we like those Player of the Year cards in the past. But other things to touch on with the smaller leagues, Turkey and Portugal, Karagümrük especially in Turkey is going to be an interesting one because last FIFA they did, I think it was, they had one team and then suddenly had a drastic change in January and it made things a bit more interesting for the league SBCs. And then Portugal, their squad depths are quite limiting, so be prepared with that one, folks, as well. But all in all, I feel like I've covered near enough everything, and as I said, I've let it run through as well. But let me know, folks, in the comments down below how you are going to try and maybe prepare yourself for SBCs, if it's league, marquee matchups, play of the months, basic, advanced, whatever it may be. Let me know, folks, in the comments down below. So smash likes always, sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter, GZorgan. Thanks again to the EA Creator Network for the video opportunity and to get this up for you and to kind of sit down and explain it in as much depth as I can, and I'll catch you all later.